Good evening, everybody. Welcome back then to another LFM stream here for round number 1 in Season 15 of the Case King Pro Series. Boy, oh boy, it is good to be back, and I have no doubt that this race this evening is going to be just as wonderful as every other championship has been, because we have some new cars, we have some new faces with us in this race tonight as well, and Watkins Glen, what a track to play host to the start of this season. It is fast, it is mighty, it is a proper driver's circuit, and there are going to be some serious shenanigans at that point of the track right there. I imagine that fast chicane on the opening lap, it invites so much in the way of overtaking, but sometimes it comes at a cost in terms of the risk versus reward. These guys, the best on the best of the LFM platform and within ACC and GT3 sim racing, but this sort of circuit and this level of competition in the championship always puts these drivers to the test, and they are going to be delivering action in buckets loads. And of course, a bit awaited over the last couple of months or so, the Ford Mustang is with us now in the Case King Pro Series. And I can say, perhaps unsurprisingly, we do have a few in the top split of the Pro Series. And interestingly, some drivers who we may not have expected to be taking that car have looked to get themselves into the American outfit for this championship. And but saying that, we do have a really good mix of cars. I've seen some Astons, some Lamborghinis, some Ferraris, some Porsches, the Ford Mustang, of course, as well, the Hondas as well, making a little bit of resurgence over recent weeks in the world of LFM. Of course, the likes of Florian Duacop looking very quick in that car at the tail end of last season as well. So really, really interesting stuff. And do we in fact have a Bentley? Now, I was having a little bit of a look, and oh my goodness, Mr. Carpet himself in Bentley representation. Well, do you know, if that doesn't suggest a perfect evening of racing, then I really don't know what does. That is going to be absolutely wonderful to get stuck into for the evening, as drivers making their way around this fantastic circuit, getting their final few moments of preparation done and sorted and ready and underway for what looks likely to be an incredible evening of action around this track. And yeah, look at some of these drivers. We have some returning faces that we are familiar with in the Case King Pro Series, as well as also some names you may recognise from the world of sim racing, but perhaps not quite in this championship. And I'm very excited to see how exactly these guys get on. So we'll make our way over to the circuit as these drivers doing their final few moments of practice. Looking at this man, Jardier, who ended last season on a mighty, mighty high as he took a dramatic victory around the Nordschleife for changing conditions at the very end of the race. And this man, he loves this circuit. The Aston Martin, I was about to say, a car that tends to be quite nice and easy to drive. You can see Watkins Glen already throwing a spanner in the works in practice, but Jardier was able to stay calm and collected and snatch away victory from Florian Duacop, who was so mighty in qualifying and was leading that race for so long. But in those changing moments at the very end, where some cars pitted, some cars stayed out, Jardier, Florian, Jacob Osterman, the top three that braved it out on those slicks in the rain. It was Jardier who was able to keep his cool just a little bit more and bring home another season-ending victory. He's done that for 2 seasons in a row now. I'm sure he'll be looking to try to keep up that momentum and kick off Season 15 with a race win if he can. And yes, the streak of looking to win every race at the end of the season, but always finishing the championship with a smile in a way that, of course, Jardier always does. Now, reviewing some of our other hot prospects in this grid for this evening, that, of course, well, we have to give this man a mention, as we see the beautiful big bad Boatley making its way around the Grip Packs engineering car in the hands of Timo Karppinen, our resident Finnish driver, multiple-time race winner as well, I do believe, and he will be taking that car for a spin, and I'm looking forward to seeing that in this championship. Of course, it's a playful car at the best of times. Oh my goodness, just about making it into the pits. Might work on the pit entry for a bit of a safer one for his mandatory stop in the race. But that is going to be one to keep an eye on. Other returning faces, of course, Grantas Correcas, a champion in his own right, back in the server as well. Fantastic to have him back with us, and cannot wait to see how he gets on. The two-time champion, where is he in our positions at the moment? Mr. Luke Whitehead, of course, he had a bit of a intermittent appearance over the course of last season, but he is always absolutely rapid at every single track he goes to. In the Porsche once again, so some things not looking to change, but when we look elsewhere in the field, for example, the man that has contested for championship victory time and time again over the last few seasons, Mr. George Boothby, has made the transition over to this big, bad Ford Mustang. It is going to make some incredible noises over the course of his championship. We will be going on board with that car very, very shortly. And I think we'll have to, for our first onboard around the circuit, we will need to do it with the Mustang. It's only fair. It's joined us for Season 15, and it's going to be really interesting to see how this car gets on. Bit of a powerhouse, and, you know, a relatively kind of, you know, mixed platform in terms of having some good mechanical stability. You see George Boothby really sending it around these wonderful fast circuits. Maybe not quite as inherently agile as some of the cars he's been previously used to. You know, of course, George Boothby, very, very quick consistently in mid-engine cars like the Ferrari 296, the 488, before the newer generation of the prancing horses came in. Also seen him be rapid in the likes of the McLaren as well. I mean, George Boothby, he's a mighty, mighty sim racer on ACC. He's always going to be quick in whatever piece of machinery you put him into. But traditionally, we have seen him in either in mid-engine cars for the vast majority of time in terms of what he has been competitive in. So this is the first time, really, we're seeing him take on a front-engine layout of what he's going to be able to get out of that platform. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see how it gets on. And so, John, if you were biased, who do you want to see today? Well, I'm always definitely not biased, but what I can do is I will give some predictions, commentator curse that person, who will then, unfortunately, probably run into some demise. but I will partially blame it on you for prompting the question. So who do I think is going to be quick around here? Well, you can never rule out the likes of George Boothby, Luke Whitehead, Jardier with some good momentum as well. We've got Nicholas Hoban as well returning to the series with some sort of weird Bentley Mustang merged prototype. Oh no, there's an Aston Martin in there somewhere. I think it's an Aston Martin and a Ford Mustang that have coalesced into something, something or another. So expect that man to be quick as well. Florian Duacop has had some very good recent form, and especially, you know, in qualifying trim, that Honda has been pretty rapid, and it's a car that's gone well around here previously as well. We've got Lewis Roters for ITB Racing back with us, Jacob Osterman in the server as well, I do believe. So, you know, there's a lot of really, really quick contenders for this evening. But if I had to put my money, predictions even pre-qualifying, I mean, of course, you can't rule out the reigning champion as well. You know, Amadeo Casarino, class act of driving last season to take his maiden championship win in the Case King Pro Series, and he has been in stellar form over the course of those racing. Consistency has been key. Do I think the Aston Martin has got the package required to take pole at this circuit and take a race win? Maybe if we have mixed conditions. Do you know what? I think I'm going to go... I can hear a little bit of rain, but I think I'm going to go in terms of my predictions. I'm going to say George Boothby. I think George Boothby, he's had often quite a sort of a common streak of being able to take the race win in the opening portion of the season. Like I say, I'm in the process of commentator cursing him, so that probably now won't happen. But, you know, around this circuit, you need good power around here, and I think the Ford Mustang should be able to deliver that quite nicely. You need a car that's stable over some of the bumps and can deal with the fast, tricky chicane. I can see potentially that George Boothby will be in a position to take a race win and try to once again contend for the pointy end of the grid positions. You always expect to see him up there, but that would be who my money's on, and I've done that pre-qualifying, so even no bias in that form. But we do have rain. Do love a bit of rain. It always adds some extra fun into the mix, and yes, with the presence of rain, unfortunately, Team McCarpin in that Bentley, I'm sure there may be a little bit of a sigh in that one. And absolutely, yeah, for Luke Whitehead, I would think that the rain is going to be a very, very useful thing indeed because, yeah, there we go. So Mustang looking like it has very, very strong top end. That was my suspicion for around here. And, you know, that in terms of being able to make progress through field, even if you only qualify within the top 5, something like that, sometimes having that power, that raw top speed in race trim, that's what you need because it's very, very difficult to them for another car to make their way past you unless they do it strategically. And, you know, and also then if you just get in the slipstream, it's a very, very long run up the hill here. So we'll have to see how it all plays out. But rain definitely brings the likes of some of these Aston, the Porsches, Ferraris into perhaps slightly stronger contention in qualifying trim and makes it a little bit more tricky and difficult for these Mustangs to maybe run away quite so easily in terms of outright pace. So it's going to be a really, really fun one to witness, and we will hop on board with Mr. Boothby once he gets his tyres in those final few moments of preparation, waiting to get underway for qualifying. See a lovely interior in that V8 already burbling away as he enters the penultimate corner. Of course, you want to leave yourself a little bit of room to the cars ahead. It's not quite as sensitive as your prototypes, your single-seaters, where dirty air is a big, big factor, but you do want to give yourself, you know, some clean air ahead of you. Make sure you do maximize that downforce on the front splitter of your GT3 car, but also so that you can just fundamentally have that visibility ahead of you. And I just want to give you a few moments of peace with this Mustang as it makes its way up the hill. My goodness, I think I could listen to that all evening, but unfortunately, I've got to talk over the things. But George Boothby absolutely flying with this wonderful Mustang at the moment, making his way now down into chute corner turn 6, and then winding way up into the compression of turn 7 toe corner. So you might start to see a little bit of a theme here with the track corner names, and you can really use this ramp style effect in the braking zone to slow down the cars. Super confident, tops the timing sheets, possibly for the only time this evening in the Bentley, but he has managed to clear the likes of Veit Schorker and Samir Foch. It's going to be very tricky to extract pace out of that kind of. You can see some of the other times coming in. A Walsingham, Philip Menard, Campanella, Leon Burns, all starting to go a little bit quicker, almost into the 48s. We've got pretty consistent rain over the course of this session, but as these cars start to lap their way around here, you would start to expect for those times will tumble. The track dries out a little bit. As you can see, George Boothby really fighting this Mustang. Maybe not quite as planted as he would like in these wet conditions. My goodness. Managing to hold on to that one just about. He hits the timing beat. What's it going to be for George Boothby? It's good enough for P4, but I think it's safe to say with a little bit more time in that lap. That was certainly a case of hanging on to it when it counted. We've got like Sebastian Zehenna looking very quick in the Aston Martin, currently sitting in the top 3. Another one of these Mustangs for Lotte Esports as Lucas Roda in the next of those Sim RC Aston Martins. He goes into the 48s for the first time. Eric Del Fanta up there as well in the Honda, so keep an eye on those cars. Well, Philip Menard going very, very quickly as it stands 4/10 of a second up in the Lamborghini, no less. Florian Duacop now puts 4/10 of a second over the rest of the field. Castorino, the reigning champion, into the top 3 immediately. But Philip Menard, the one setting the pace at the moment. Big improvements up and down the order as he weaves his way through these tricky series of corners. The 255 competition car, the number 11, flies on through into the penultimate turn. Oh, he really gets a slide and a half through there. Manages just about keep it under control. His Mustang seeming a little bit leery, but it's a Mustang. I feel like it's tradition almost. It's going to be. It has lost a bit of time in that final sector. He will improve up to P4, but right now, Florian Duacop continuing that fine bounce of form, especially in qualifying trim that we saw at the end of last season at the Nordschleife. Of course, a man that's often, when he's at the pointy end of the field, has some pretty dramatic finishes to his races. At Bathurst a few seasons ago, it was in his favour. Nordschleife, unfortunately, not quite, but certainly would have given him confidence that in these conditions that he really can extract a great deal of performance out of this car. And he is certainly going to be a man to watch, I have no doubt. George Boothby improves up into the top 5. But with this weather staying with us throughout this qualifying session, this is very good territory for the Honda. It's just so naturally pointy. It really just doesn't... It kind of... Oh, it's going to be really awkward. Who was that? I have a feeling that may have been Jardier in the Aston Martin, and there very well could be... I mean, Florian Duacop did still improve. Fantastic stuff, a 48.3 from the Honda driver, but did he get impeded there? It certainly looked to me like he lost a bit of momentum through that final corner. We'll go for a little bit of a replay on board with the Honda driver. We'll see how he was dancing through the rain regardless, because his Honda is so majestic in these conditions. But through that final turn, it did really feel like he lost a bit of momentum. Now, there's also this possibly hilarious circumstance where I went too far back on the replay, and that the replay is going to cut off just when we get to the thing that we were particularly interested in. It's going to be, I think we'll be just about okay, but it was looking a little bit dicey on the time. So here we go. So through penultimate turn, and then you see the Mustang goes on through, doesn't get covered, in towards the final turn. Oh, it's close. It's very, very close. I think, though, it just feels like he did have to hesitate. Where have we ended up? We are in the abyss. What has happened now? Okie dokie. Well, oh, there we go. well, we temporarily ascended into another dimension. Zabsy, I appreciate the pun there. That's not what I've heard before, but I do greatly approve that. Okay, well, thankfully, we seem to have made our way back into the land of the living, and we've still got Florian Duacop topping the timing sheets at the moment. But you see the likes of Eric Del Fanta looking very quick as it stands. With those Hondas making it a 1-2. Castorino going to the line in P4 now. 0.6 of a second away from pole position, though. So those Hondas looking very, very quick. That's and no, don't encourage Nightbot. Nightbot has enough trouble trying to distinguish things at the best of times. It doesn't need any further forms of encouragement in order to try to ban people from various forms of chat. That's yes, so the commentary team, unfortunately, on this occasion, one of the few people to be sent into the Shadow Realm. Unfortunately, sometimes it does, in fact, happen to the best of us. And you are more than welcome. It is a pleasure to be bringing all of you coverage of this incredible championship once again. One absolutely fantastic season we had last time around with this man managing to win it out. Previously was regarded as a little bit of a dark horse in the championship, you know, always kind of there or thereabouts, but maybe not quite championship contention sort of level. But in this Aston Martin last season, the Italian Amedeo Castorino absolutely stepped up his game and was on incredible form throughout the championship, just consistently putting himself in positions to win races, finish on the podium, had an amazing streak of podium finishes, and that really was what cemented his championship lead at the end, just being able to deliver those performances time after time that these guys went out and battled on circuit. We'll see how he can get on this evening. And behind Florian Duacop at top of this grid as it stands, he does actually have those three Italians of Del Fanta, Campanella, and Castorino behind. I know that one man will be supporting very much the likes of Campanella. I think a few of the other Visceral Esports drivers on the grid this evening. And Fabrizio has had some absolutely fantastic moments in this championship. Some really, strong, showcases of pace, really highlighting the speed that he's been able to deliver. sometimes has run into a bit of unfortunate luck over the course of the race and hasn't quite been able to translate that into the sort of pace that we've maybe seen in glimpses from him. But right now, in these tricky conditions, the wet weather playing into his favour, and be very interested to see how that translates over by the time that we get into the race, depending on what we have up there. Solid effort from Mr. Carpet, worst possible conditions from for the Bentley. And absolutely, Timo Karpman doing a solid effort, managing to put himself just outside of the top 20 as it stands at the moment. Number 18 car, finding 0.2 of a second up as well, so we might break into those top 20 cars, being up into the upper half of the field. But I tell you what, it's still going to be a tricky area of the grid for the Bentley driver to be battling amongst, because especially on that opening lap, such a dense pack of cars heading up through this twisty section of turns 2 and 3. You wind your way through turn 4 onto the back straight, and then when you head through that inner loop chicane, it is a very, very tricky section indeed, and there will be a lot of slipstreaming, a lot of battling, at least 3 wide from some cars in the field, I imagine. And you can see that's the other problem with this circuit. You run a little bit wide through the chicane, and if you just head over that curve. The Bentley, one of the cars that's probably going to be more forgiving of running wide like that. But if you're in a Ferrari, McLaren, a Lamborghini perhaps as well, they do tend to be a little bit grumpy if you run that wide. Then you dip a wheel on the other side of the curve, then you come back across, can bottom out suspension, and then send you into big trouble into the wall on the opposite side. So it's going to be very difficult for these guys to maintain that consistency over the course of the race. Luke Whitehead got himself onto the front row, 48.6, still about a quarter of a second away from Florian Duacop's best effort so far. Marco Bischoff finding some time. He has just crossed the line. Where's he gone to? P5 for the number 1 man in the server, and he has that number 1 plate for good reason. He is not just the highest ranked individual in this server, but I believe he's also the highest ranked individual on the LFM platform. It's kind of been a bit of an ongoing battle between himself, the likes of George Boothby. Luke Whitehead's been up there as well, Grant Carreras for a while, as to who has had that number 1 plate on their car. And for Team Nitro driver Marco Bischoff has reclaimed that position, and wearing it with a great deal of pride. So much effort in order to do that. But final minute or so on the clock for qualifying. So final laps are going to be starting for drivers. As it stands, it's Florian Duacop leading the way at the top of the timing sheet, with Luke Whitehead looking to put himself onto the front row. But Eric Del Fanta might have something to say about that. He's there or thereabouts on his Delta. The number 3 car does cross the line and go a smidge quicker by a tenth and a little bit. He does a 0.56 and gets himself ahead of the Porsche driver and makes it Honda 1 and 2 as it stands. So the number 20 car locking out the Japanese outfit on the front row of the grid, and he will have time for one more. Florian Duacop not improving as it stands. Yellow flags out for the likes of Marco Schada further down the order. I think he is going back to pit lane to no further improvements from him. Big improvements for the likes, actually, of Lewis Roters further down the order. He's found 0.6 of a second in the middle of the lap. He might break his way into the 48 and get himself into the top 10 if he can round that one out to the line. You can see Castorino will start no higher than P9, the championship leader. Not the best qualifying for him. We've also got Marco Bischoff, Jacob Osterman, Luke Whitehead having completed their qualifying sessions. There's more and more of these positions. Florian Duacop not improving either. I don't think Eric Del Fanta is going to be able to topple his time as Duacop does come into the pits. Now he just has to wait, see whether or not he is going to hold on to a pole position, make it back-to-back poles between seasons. What a spur of momentum that would be for the German driver. Del Fanta right now the nearest on the board to being able to round out a lap to contend with it. Apart from this man, Lewis Roters, big improvement towards the line, and he is going to go to P11. He doesn't quite get inside of the top 10 by the end of that one. Aidan Walsingham as well, finding some lap time. as Rotors goes on back to pits. Who was that jumping on the order? That was Osterman that found, excuse me, no, not Osterman, it was Nicholas Huben. Nicholas Huben jumps up to P4 at the last second. Fantastic efforts from German driver. He has been a championship contender in seasons of the past as well. Walsingham finding 0.3 of a second on his lap as well, but by the looks of it, I think it is going to go the way of Florian Duicot for pole position. Absolutely. Timo Karppinen as well. Fantastic efforts from the Finnish driver in the Bentley, no less, to get himself up into what is now P14. Walsingham does jump up a position, gets himself into that 13th spot, but in these tricky wet conditions, fantastic stuff there from the Grip Packs engineering car, and a very, very interesting qualifying session indeed, which is going to make up a fantastic race for this one, I am sure. Cannot wait to see how this one plays out. And I can also tell you, but just having a little bit of a sneak peek at the weather as well, it is looking like it could be pretty interesting for the weather in the race, much like that qualifying session. So we will, of course, have to keep a close eye on that one, see how it plays out for the drivers this evening, because it is a tough thing to hook up laps around here in the dry and in qualifying trim. Then you throw in the wet weather. That's a whole nother level of pressure. And then on top of that, you decide to throw in the fact that you may have to contest with that and, you know, do those things over the course of a race distance. That is a very, very different story with all of those elements put together. So it's going to be really interesting to see how our drivers get on for this evening around this incredible circuit. Of course, such a talented pack of drivers in this field, and you combine that with, you know, the sorts of prizes that are on offer, and in racing it tends to be pretty interesting and exciting, as we've come to know and love in this fantastic championship. These guys, they will, you know, it's a very friendly community within the world of low fuel motorsport, but when it comes to the racing, these guys will be looking to make sure that they really give it absolutely everything that they can and leave nothing on the table. So we will see how each of these guys get on for this evening. But Florian Duicot, man of the moments, a man of the last couple of races when it's come to qualifying trim. Absolutely stellar stuff from the German driver, and really showcasing that talent that he is able to channel into the car when it is dialed in and working. And Weenie, thank you very much for the Prime subscription, 3 months in a row. That is very, very kind of you, and big thank you to those that do give us a little bit of extra support and generosity here at LFM. It makes all of these wonderful championships, all of the hidden heroes in the background that make all of this possible. It really does contribute so much. So thank you everybody so much for all of your amazing support. Also, we are just 6 followers away from 3,700 here over on Twitch. So if you have enjoyed that qualifying session and you're pretty excited and interested in seeing how it is going to take place over the course of this 60-minute race, then do consider giving the channel a follow. And we look to see exactly how our drivers are going to get on for this evening of action. But Florian Duicot managing to put it on pole position for the second outing in the Case King Pro Series in a row. Fantastic stuff from him in that car. Joined on the front row by Eric Dalfanta, making it a Honda 1-2. And then, of course, you can never rule him out of any situation. Luke Whitehead, the 2-time Pro Series champion, in that Porsche number 3 car, starts in P3. Oh, apologies on the misclick. When Nicholas Huben got so excited for the start of the race and started making way through the grid quicker than the graphic. Nicholas Huben starts in P4. Watch out for him as well. Very experienced man in this series as well. Fabrizio Campanella, great stuff from him in that Lamborghini. A car that can be tricky to dial into these conditions, and he has made it work so far. Then we have the first of the Ferraris. He starts P6 as Leon Burnt. Great efforts from him. And Jacob Osterman, man that was on the podium last time out, at the Nordschleife. He will start in P7 ahead of Lucas Roda in P6, P8, excuse me. Apparently, so we don't quite have the cameras for the Mustangs yet, but you do at least get to see the nice Mustang writing on the rear wing, so you'll know when we're on a Mustang no matter what. Marco Bischoff starts P9. The reigning champion, Amadeo Caterino, starts in P10 with Sebastian Zehendner starting in P11. Lewis Rota's next of the ITB racing cars. He starts in P12 with Aidan Walsingham in a Mustang Ford on the rear wing of that one, as he did improve at the end, but not quite enough to jump his way further up the order. Big stuff from this man, Timo Karpinen in the Bentley. Great qualifying from him to get 14th position. And then Philip Manar in the next of the Mustangs. He starts in P15 with George Boothby. Another one. We've got a sort of duel between people sporting the Ford logo on the rear wing and the Mustang logo. One way or another, though, they make up the 8th row of the grid. Marco Schada, the next of the Hondas. He starts in 17th position. Sam Gaskell, number 9 car. Another one of these Visceral Esports Lamborghinis. Good qualifying from him. Maybe wondering how his teammate extracted a little bit more than he did in that qualifying session. Grant Karek is returning to the championship. He starts inside the top 20, but a bit further down the order than we are used to seeing the Lithuanian driver. Max Florens rounds out the top 20 with Albert Manson in the number 29 car, starting in 21st position. Jalier starts in 22nd place. I do need to check in and see if he did get any sort of form of warning. And nope, by the looks of it, nothing that I can see on my sheet there. So he escaped trouble in the number 5 car. No Reader starts 23rd place with Jentel van Thielen in the 24th spot. Samir Foch with, unless that's my eyes deceiving me, what appears to be an Aston Martin logo on the rear wing of that car. Michael Frey starts in 26th position with then the... someone's got out of sequence here in all of that. Wait for us to catch up. Ahmet Serdar Kargulu starts, it was meant to start in 28th position, but we've now got Cody Sherratt and then Jimmy Holmes. So someone's gone a little bit out of sequence here. Not quite sure what's happened there, but I think we are back on track. So Jimmy Holmes rounds out the top 30. Luke Addison starts in 31st position with Sasha Vassner, the next of the Aston Martins. Then we have Tommy Razia starting in 33rd place with that Genesis Esports livery on his car. Dennis Vietschorka, next of the Astons. He starts on down in 34th position as... as Nightbot has once again come out in full force. That's Kylo, our resident statistician, being struck down, but perhaps less surprisingly than normal. Matty DeCampo, 35th, with Vanzine Barrier making up the 18th row of the grid alongside the Italian driver. Votek Neuwirth starts in 37th. Fabio Steyer starts in 38th place, with then Vladislav Kolosov. That's, oh, it wasn't Nightbot, it was the auto. Oh my god, I don't know the difference. I just shout into the microphone when the cars go by. And then David Rodriguez rounding out our grid for the evening. So what a fantastic lineup that we have. They're making their way through the last couple of corners, with Florian Duakop looking to try to convert this pole position into another race victory. He's only done it once before, but especially with us starting in the rain, as rain looks to be with us for quite a while, there is definitely opportunity for him to do just that. And I absolutely cannot wait to see how this is going to play out over the course of this one. Season 15 of the Case King Pro Series. It is back. It is better than ever, and it is underway. Green flag. And it's a good start from Eric Del Fantimo. Looks on the outside line. Florian Durkop trying to defend in towards turn 1. They go. Luke Whitehead watching and waiting for an opportunity. Del Fanta trying to go around the outside before Durkop. Looks like he's got the line covered, but now the slipstream train begins. And look at that. Luke Whitehead. Great traction out of turn 1. They go. Watch out for the Aston Martin. Nicholas Hubert is building up a huge amount of momentum through turn 2 and 3. They go in towards 4. The Aston Martin closing all the time with Luke Whitehead. Does he bump? Oh, the contact! Luke Whitehead barely holds onto it. My goodness! almost a huge crash before they even got to the chicane. Thankfully, they all stay as they were. So close to a major catastrophe at the very beginning of Season 15. But Luke Whitehead, quick hands in the cockpit of that Porsche. He holds on with Florian Duicop. Dream start for him, almost a second clear of the rest of the field as they wind their way on through. Further down the order, you can see the absolute carnage in the mid-pack, absolutely nose to tail. As a few cars, Lewis Rotors, one of the big losers on the opening lap, down for positions as people were ducking and diving, looking for opportunities in this wet weather. Let's go on board with our reigning champion as he looks to try to just Amadeo Castorino, currently sitting in P10 as it stands, maintaining position. Sebastian Zahenda looking to put him under pressure in towards the right-hander. Tail end of the lap, that's heel corner, turn 8. Carreras and Sam Gaskell having a little bit of a scrap as well. Further down the order, it looks like Carreras has come out top of that fight as just behind. That's Max Florence up the inside of Jardier. The Aston Martin scrambling away for grip of Florian Duicop. Fantastic start at the beginning of this race. Gap already over a second, but Luke Whitehead, how did he manage to hold on to that one? That was not intentional by any stretch of the imagination, but came so close to disaster, because if that car goes around in this wet weather, cars flying up through that section, that is almost guaranteed to be carnage. But thankfully they keep it all together. But you see then, Duicop leads from Del Fanta, then it's Whitehead, Huben, Campanella, Burnt, Osterman, and these Mustangs, despite that straight line speed advantage, they will be struggling a little bit in these conditions. And let's see the first of the next drag races. My goodness, look at the straight line speed that Nicholas Huben has. It's attempt number 2, but this time he's a little bit more cautious, and he looks to back out that one. But that car, if he gets a good run out of the first turn, he's definitely looking for an opportunity. Marco Bischoff and Lucas Roda having a squabble at the chicane, and it is a 2-time Pro Series champion has come out on top of that fight as they make their way through the outer loop and fly on by. Rotors unable so far to recover any of those positions he'd lost on the opening lap of the race. Other battling going on further down the order as well. You see the likes of Tommy Rizzi as a dive down the inside of Mattia De Campo in that Veloce Academy livery car, bouncing all over the curve. You've got to be tricky how much of that you utilise. The Frenchman on the inside, but sweeping around the outside is De Campo. There's a little bit of company there as well. David Rodriguez from the back of the pack. And you see nose to tail. Interestingly, a few cars there making their way over to the right side of the circuit. That would be to cool their tyres down off the racing line. So perhaps we've seen some drivers go a little bit over on the tyre pressures. The track is relatively hot. Nothing too mad, but it might be making some of those tyres just a little bit toastier than these guys would have liked. Valentin Barrier in the McLaren scrapping away with Luke Addison. See, in that Aston Martin. National fans go on board with the Aston Martin. How is he hooking up? You can really see struggling to get the power down on the exit. The final corner, Valentin cooling his tyres a little bit off the racing line. Closing behind is the likes of Kargulu, who thinks about the inside. Can't quite get there in towards the braking zone. And so we'll just have to hold fire just a little bit. I think Razia and Rodriguez have gone toe-to-toe once again. How's it looking at the front of the grid? Gaps have actually emerged amongst our top 5. It's a little bit closer, though, with the likes of Bischoff and Osterman. Osterman down the inside. He likes this overtaking spot. It's not the first time that he's made positions up around here in that same place. And the McLaren driver, who was one short of a win last time out at the Nordschleife at the end of Season 14, gets himself up into P7 and past the 2-time Pro Series champion, and now sets off in sight of Leon Burnt for P6. Osterman able to extract a huge amount of pace whenever he goes racing, and we know just how quick he can be in that McLaren, especially saw an onboard from him the other day comparing some lap times. Look at that, everybody looking to cool those tyres down the right hand side of the circuit. This rain not looking to escalate or disappear anytime soon. And certainly into the pit, the vast majority of that central pit window, it is looking like these drivers will be going on to the wet tyres once again. But fantastic shots as these GT3 cars, they snake their way through the final sector as there is a yellow flag further down the order. Cody Sherratt, that appears to have gone around the Mustang, gets himself out of the gravel trap. And what has happened there? Is it an unforced error? A lot of these cars were pretty close together. You can see So many of them diving over to that right-hand side of the circuit to cool those tyres down. There's a yellow flag out for Max Florence now. Oh, that's a big dive from Michael Frey. Oh, I have to say, though, I must admit, if Michael Frey does get a penalty there, I would be a little bit surprised, because to me, I mean, of course, we were looking from an outside view, but it did look like to me, but he did get the car stopped in time for the apex and did actually keep it on that inside line. And that perhaps Cody Scherer... Oh, that was the sideways moment. That was the yellow flag for the Mercedes driver, and he did, unfortunately, clip the wall in the final corner as well. We saw even George Boothby having his Mustang let go in that same area in qualifying trim. Just tagging the barrier there. Some unfortunate stuff there for the German driver. And, yeah, whilst it was definitely an ambitious dive from Michael Frey, but he was firmly alongside by the time that they got to the apex, and it did look to me that he scrubbed off that additional momentum. If there was a significant amount of understeer in the mid corner, then I would have said it is very clearly on the overtaking car, which often is that's where the responsibility has to be for the most part. But at least with the limited viewing that I had from those camera angles, it did look like, he slowed it up, and there could have been a little bit more room given on that inside line. But the stewards, our wonderful live stewards, hard at work, will be running around in the background, reviewing that one. We'll see what they have to say with those camera angles as well. Gap for the lead has come down a smidge. It's now sort of hovering around that 1 second mark. Luke Wyatt as well has regained a bit of ground over Eric Del Fanta. Because the Honda sometimes, if it's not, if the car isn't nicely balanced in terms of the way that it uses its tyres, it can become a very, very tricky car to drive over the course of a race distance. I think that's really what we started to see, come to fruition last time in Nordschleife. In those conditions when the cars on the slick tyres went into the wet conditions, of course, the overall, pace and bounce of the car was important, but I do think that was also something that gave Jardier that advantage. Meanwhile, Zahenda manages to capitalize on a poor exit from the reigning champion, makes his way up into P10. I'll tell you what, it's not done between these two. Castorino trying to fight back, wants the position back, into the chicane they go. But a man that's had a championship to his name, he knows this series is all about consistency, and he's not taking too much of a risk on this occasion. So he hangs fire for now and stays in P11. Luke Whitehead as well, unable to make progress. Lewis Rotas, always a yellow flag, out for somebody. Always two cars, it's Addison and Cargulu, as Florence comes across these cars, and that looks like it's a big shot. Addison, I think, he is still in the barrier there. So what has happened? Further down the order, I said it tends to get a little bit busy around here. That looks rather ominous. I think these two may have had a coming together. So this is Luke Addison ahead of Cargulu. They're going to go onto the entry to the chicane. Always it's into the braking zone that it happens, and he just spins and spins. Heavy impact on the rear for one, and then heavy damage on the front for the Mustang as well. And that, unfortunately, will be a very, very damaging portion of each of those guys' races, because there's a little bit of time yet until that mandatory pit stop, so you can't even really tie it in very nicely to when you come in. And there's a lot of damage on those cars as well. Marco Schade, Lewis Rotas having a bit of a battle further down. Lewis Rotas continuing to tumble down the order, and I think he's in trouble here from the Ferrari of Grandes Carrecas, as is Sam Gaskell versus Jardier in the background. Couple of very intense scraps, ducking and diving for position. Each of these drivers, as Carrecas unable to make his way on by. How's it all play out here? And it's side by side on the exit between Van Thielen and Noah Reeder. And another one of these incredible drag races begins up the hill. These guys snaking their way up. There's one of the Mustangs looming behind. That is Albin Manson, I think, who's got a good run of momentum. There's a little bit of contact between the Mustang and the Ferrari. My goodness, you need to be so careful through there. Grandes Carrecas trying to go around the outside, further out the order. Can't make it stick, but the Mustang of Noah Reeder does go on through. In actual fact, all over the gearbox of the Aston Martin as Van Thielen carried a bit more momentum, but for a brief moment, looked like he was going to be able to sneak up the inside and the outer loop. Couldn't make it stick there. and they all make it through safe and sound. Some cheers as well for Mr. Carpenter himself. Team Carpenter currently sitting in P13 in this Bentley as they all fly on by. Fantastic camera shots between each of these cars. We go on board the front splitter. In actual fact, I'll go on board the rear diffuser of this man because Philip Manar in the Mustang putting him under a little bit of pressure. And have I just seen what I think I've just seen? There's no way on this planet that car behind is... Oh, for goodness, I can't see it properly because I haven't got the right camera angle for it. But I don't know if anyone else spotted that, but for a brief moment, we were on board the rear diffuser of Team Carpenter. I saw some yellow walls on the side of Philip Manar's car, which would indicate he's on the dry tyres. But I just... Surely not. I can't imagine that that's true. We'll keep an eye. If somebody maybe who's got a little bit of extra information could clarify on that front, that would be wonderful. But I really cannot see how that's the case. Anyway, no matter. We've got a battle on our hands further down the order. Michael Frey almost going into the side of Samir Foch, who was passed by Janus Reyners in the Mustang just a moment ago. He does make his way past, but Samir in this car is going to be very, very quick on this back straight here. On board we go. Contact once again. Oh my goodness. Barely a hair's width between them by the time they get to the chicane. There's the Mustang straight line speed. Samir tries to keep the Swiss driver honest. Can't make it stick through that sequence, and now maybe under a little bit of pressure from Valentine, and he's up the inside. The McLaren driver capitalizing on the weaker exit of the Mustang, and he does get it down. The Frenchman makes his way up in 26th place, and that's what you've got to be so careful of sometimes. If you do have an opportunity presented your way, it's not always beneficial to go for it at the very first moment. And here's something interesting. Look at this. Florian Duacop losing time on the last couple of laps. Eric Delfanta and Luke Whitehead, both 0.2 of a second quicker than the man that dominated in qualifying and led the way since the start of this race. Just 13 minutes or so into the stint, and right now it is game on between these three. They've got a little bit of space between themselves. Nicholas Huben is another gap down to the likes of Fabrizio Campanella, but Eric Delfanta right now looking composed, looking quick. He's got to be careful though with how he attacks, because just like what we saw with Samir Foch, if you do it in the wrong place, as they all sweep across, I thought that was a poor exit for Florian. He was going defensive, but Delfanta and the cars in front and behind him all calling their tyres in these hotter conditions. And it's rain right now, not looking to disappear. And yeah, right now Luke Whitehead looking rather clinical. I think my bet of George Boothby looking unlikely for the race win as it stands. And we know the sort of performances he can deliver, but that far down the order would require a bit of a miracle. I don't see conditions changing anytime soon. Delfanta not quite the same level of straight line speed as Florian Duacop, so perhaps that's where Florian's pace and ability to hold on to this lead is coming from, but maybe losing now a little bit as those tyres start to degrade. Leon Byrne closing the gap to Fabrizio Campanella, who is in a fantastic P5 finish. That could be a current personal best for him in the Case King Pro Series, but he's going to have to work hard to keep this German driver behind him because he is looking very quick in these conditions as it stands. So Delfanta might be on 6. He has a yellow sidewall. So I mean, I have never noticed, but with this level of rain, and this is a relatively high amount of rain. Yeah, he does have those yellow sidewalls. Meanwhile, well, so does Florian Duacop apparently. But Luke Whitehead maybe does. I don't know at this point. I don't think I can trust it either. These cars are all doing very, very similar lap times, and it's rare that if on any circumstance that you run into that scenario, because if it's dry enough for slicks to be viable, at that point usually the wet tires have already incinerated and died horribly, and if it's still too damp for the slicks, then those tyres are usually aquaplaning off into Narnia. So on that basis, it's very rare that we actually see the two kind of converge on pace, especially for so many laps in a row. So I can't imagine, especially we've had pretty steady state conditions since the start of this race, I don't think any of these cars are on those mix of compounds. My goodness, what is going on here? Everybody fighting for position. Castorino! Was there a little bit of contact on the entry to the braking zone there? He could be in trouble, but I've got to come back to him in a moment because look at this. The top three Duacop, Delphanta, and Whitehead. Actually, no tail. Half a second between P1 and P3, and Delphanta is looking very eager to start challenging for a move to go into the race lead. The two Hondas have had good pace since the start, as meanwhile Leon Burns almost got opportunity there, ran a little bit wide, loses that chance. Meanwhile, Marco Bischoff fights his way back past Ottoman, but it might be Lucas Roda to take them all, and he does. There's contact in the background, the head that's sent wide as Ottoman was trying to rejoin into this pack, and he loses 1, 2, 3 positions. Bischoff only losing 1, but Lucas Roda, fantastic opportunistic stuff from him. Carpenter watching with delight. He sees some opportunities here to get that Bentley into the top 10. He looks to the outside line, trying to go in towards the ascension of Toe Corner, but won't find opportunity there. Meanwhile, Marco Bischoff wide on the exit. Castorino trying to go alongside the Mustang, but the Mustang, it's got torque, it's got grunt for days, and it pulls away on even the shortest of straights. But Lucas Roda, fantastic stuff. He read the situation between Bischoff and Osterman absolutely perfectly, and he says, thank you very much, lad. 2 for the price of 1, gets himself up into P7, but now there's a problem because he got them all behind, and in that slipstream they are going to be very, very close to hunting around for another opportunity. Meanwhile, looking back towards your top 3, fantastic fights. Each of these guys lapping within just a few hundredths of one another. Again, the margin between each of them, very, very small. And this is where you start to consider strategy very likely going to feature into this one. Luke Whitehead, he gets such a good run out of the first turn, but then Honda Power starts to take over. But Delphanta a little bit further away, but he was on the last lap. He's not quite going to get the same slipstream he once did. Luke Whitehead, he needs to time the slingshots if he's going to make this work. But you see, as soon as he comes out of the draft, he gets dropped by the Honda. But can he carry the momentum through the chicane? Gaining to the inside hill. Look, he makes a room. Oh, but he has to back out on the entry. But that's what he's going for. He's trying to set that one up. Meanwhile, Walsingham, Osterman, Carpenter, all squabbling away for positions as well around the top 10. But they stay as they were, with Carpenter under pressure from Menard, Boothby, and Zahendna as well. And absolutely Watkins Glen. It is such a wonderful track. It is fast, it is flowing, it is so many unique qualities to it as well. And it makes for some fantastic racing. And you splash a bit of rain in there with some of the very best in GT3, and you are in for a treat. Wide moment briefly for Osterman. He gets it straightened up though out of Toe Corner as they all fly on down. Look at these camera shots. It's just so good. Meanwhile, that little bit of squabbling doesn't take much. Little bit of squabbling between Delphanta and Luke Whitehead did briefly open up that gap to about a second, but very quickly between these cars, it was started to be reeled in once more as they all skirt a little bit wide through the exit of turn 10. And again, a little bit wide on the exit at the final turn. But they all stay in close proximity to one another. Leon Burton there as well, hunting the back of Campanella. That Lamborghini, the V10, the Raging Bull, will have a good amount of grunt up the hill, as Aidan Walsingham might have a good opportunity here. Needs a good exit. You see Marco Schada in the background as well. Actually, everybody going for moves up and down the order. Walsingham sends it down the inside. Marco Schada, I think, has had some fortune as well. Jacob Osterman tagged off the road, goes onto the asphalt on the outside line. And meanwhile, Tipu Carpenter slithers his way in the Bentley into position to try to see if he can go for an overtake. Flashing of the lights there as Leon Burns also going to go for a move around the outside. Fantastic racing between these two. Leon Burt makes it stick. Osterman versus Carpenter. He'll stay in the way of the ITV racing car for the time being, as now Jardier also takes a position off Lewis Rotas, who's down 6 places. Jardier up 5. Valentine Barrett fell down the order as well, up 11 from where he qualified. Fantastic stuff. But Timu Carpenter still very much in the thick of this fight. As we see, right-hand drive, of course, for the British outfit, trying to lurk around the back of that McLaren again. A bit of a wide moment. Carpenter seeks an opportunity. Up the inside, there it's contact. There is a little bit of contact. Osterman just about keeps it together. Someone else was caught out in the background as well. It's Philip Manar that got a little bit slowed up and has allowed Zahenda Boothby to all go through. Zahenda with the best momentum of the ball, blocked on the entry into the braking zone. Boothby down the inside, the Aston 2 of the outside. Crazy stuff here at Watkins Glen, and they now fly on towards the next turn. A squeeze from George Boothby, having none of it, and the pit window's open as well, just to add to the chaos and the interest of this race. Marco Schada on the attack, over and under into the entry towards turn 10, slid away up the inside, side by side with the South African, who runs a bit wide on the exit. Jardier joins the party as well on the back of that incredible race victory, and the Honda driver actually, Jardier getting almost a little bit of a taste of his own medicine from that, of course, what's the word? It's, you know, a non-purposeful block in qualifying, but does get slowed up on the exit as these guys all dive into pit lane. And you saw the speed. I think, which driver was that came into pit lane? I think it was Noah Reeder in the Mustang. Really stormed his way in to them. They were 3 wide on the entry to that one. It could well be a stop-go 30-second penalty if he has sped into pit lane. So those guys all going for a pretty aggressive undercut. By the looks of it, the weather really not looking to go anywhere over the course of the next 30 minutes. And PV67, you are absolutely spot on, I know, and it's something that I've tried to fix for a while. And but yes, I completely agree, you are absolutely correct. Hopefully, I can sort out those settings at some point, but good job, that man with good ears on the audio, that do appreciate the feedback, as Luke Whitehead trying to close the distance again to Eric Del Fanta. And you can see Nicholas Huben starting to lurk a bit more into the background. He's, you know, very similar times between the top 4, but every time these guys squabble just a little bit, he manages to close in to these guys a bit more. And Florian Duacop, again, the gap has come down. It was up at a second, then to 7/10, and now just down to less than half a second. It's a stop-go 30-second penalty, apparently, for number 16, and that number 16 belongs to, that is... I'm trying to find number 16 in the order up and down the grid. Why can't I find them? Oh, as Jardier has just made his way apparently past Philip Manar, according to our time in boards. He continues on the move as some other cars come into the pits. As Marco Bischoff that has come on in. Oh, it's a contact at the final corner. Sam Gaskell and the Ferrari go around. Who was that as well? Trying to capitalize. Van Thielen. It's got around as well as they all farm through, and that's a very awkward place to rejoin. But contact through turn 11. We'll try to catch on the replay what happened there. So you can see there's the Lamborghini ahead. Is there a bit of an ambitious dive on the inside of turn 11? We go on through. And, oh, he's just carried way too much speed in there. And Sam Gaskell, nothing he can do. A pretty easy rejoin for him. He manages to keep up good momentum. Slots his way into the pit lane. And Van Thielen coming out of that one, the worst of the two. And yes, I imagine over in the Visual Esports camp, there'll be some grumpiness there. But I think, fortunately for Gaskell, managed to get himself going pretty swiftly and maybe not too much damage as well. So we will see how that one plays out. Meanwhile, Michael Frey trying to look up the inside once again. As also, look at this. Just 0.4 of a second separating the top 3. And Huben again taking just a 10th or so out of these guys. Last time around, it was a 50.0 for Florian Duacop. And surely, if you are either Del Fanta, Whitehead, especially Nicholas Huben, you've got 5.2 seconds behind, you can afford to do something different strategically. You have to start considering undercuts, overcuts, rather than mimicking what the car ahead is looking to do, especially the Porsche of Luke Whitehead, who will struggle to make his way past these Hondas because of that straight line speed. And that's the thought process I'm thinking of. If Luke Whitehead, who seems to have some good pace, but he senses the opportunity already towards turn 1, he's not messing around, and he's a 2-time Pro Series champion for a reason, leans on the Honda just a little bit confident, comes into the pits, and now Florian Duacop able to break away. But now, here's the important bit for Luke Whitehead. 1, will there be something said by the stewards on that front for leaning on the Honda into the turn, or was that all fair game? And has he got enough momentum as Huben's now joining the party as well? Said he was closing up to these top 3 guys, and now he is back into the thick of the fight. But Luke Whitehead, the first proper opportunity that he was given, and he launches the attack. Up into P2 he goes, and now has to consider How does he go about trying to take P1 away from Florian Duakop? And apparently, no reader. That may be the reason why I can't find him in the server. I think has left the session as... Oh, no, there he is down there. As a number 16 car. Apparently a stop-go 30 penalty for speeding in the pits. Also, just to actually go over some other penalties that we have had so far in this race. We'll keep an eye on our lead battler. Is the closest we have going on. We had a warning for the number 10 car. That was for avoidable contact with Luke Whitehead on the opening lap. Warning for the number 12. That was Valentine Barrier. A drive-through for the number 38 car. That was Luke Addison, and I think that was for causing that collision on the entry with Kargulu into the chicane. So I think they felt that the South African driver squeezed his fellow Mustang, and then everything else, no further action, and a few other things under investigation as it stands. And also, whilst we approach the halfway point of the race, crazy action once again in the Pro Series. It is always like this. Last season, all the seasons prior, and I've no doubt it's going to be just as good throughout the rest of this race and for the next 11. So if you have been enjoying the crazy action that this championship is putting on, do consider giving the channel a follow. We are just 4 followers away from 3,700, which would be a fantastic milestone to topple at the beginning of this season. And thank you everybody so much for all of the incredible supports that we have had already, as Del Fanta locks into the slipstream of Luke Whitehead, but not trying to tackle a move up the inside. I think he knows two things. One, Luke Whitehead may be a little bit of more inherent pace underneath him in that Porsche. Two, he wants this train to get themselves back to Florian Duakop. And three, if he goes too aggressive, Nicholas Huben ready to pounce in that Aston Martin. And we've already seen he's not afraid to get pretty close to the bumper of cars today. So he is eager to find a way through anytime that it presents itself. A lot of cars have come into the pits now as they fly on through. Oh, I just love this camera angle. I know we've seen it a few times over, but it's like on board with the Bentley or the Lexus, now the Mustang. It's just too good. And I love seeing, you know, that fantastic, you know, the steepness, the perspective of the shot as they go over the crest and down over the boot into heel corner. Watkins Glen, fantastic circuit, and it just always puts on such a brilliant, brilliant show every single time as they go on through turn 10 once again. Will we see anyone consider coming into pit lane? Florian Duakop a little bit squiffy through turn 10, and this time around, Del Fanta barely manages to get himself into pit lane without crossing over the nose of Nicholas Huben too much. I fancy seeing a little bit of an onboard of that one as well. I think we should be safe from battling, but Nicholas Huben, how much did he have to back off on the apex of the final turn? But with Eric Del Fanta coming into pits, he will be the one undercutting this group. It'd be very interesting to see what he can look to do. Oh, very, very minor lift, I think, from Huben as to where he would have wanted to get on the power, but generally speaking was able to just keep up that momentum and have an optimal run on to the start-finish straight. So Nicholas Huben, you can see, in hot pursuit of the two up ahead. Luke Whitehead, after making his way past Del Fanta, he has reeled in the Honda driver. Now Del Fanta may be wondering, are these guys going to scrap before they make their stop? Is that how he is going to make his way past these two and get himself into potentially a race-winning position? Look at the weather. We are having this rain stay with us throughout the rest of this race. So whatever pace and performance you've got underneath you now is likely what you're going to have with you to the end, as Luke White had a fantastic run out of toe corner, really starting to put the pressure on to your race leader now. He's led from the very start, and after what happened at the end of season 14, where he led for so much of that 90-minute race of a Northern Cypher, a challenge at the best of times, now find himself in a similar position, but the pressure coming a hell of a lot earlier and from a very formidable name. There you go, Florian Duakop. Oh, that's a conservative entry into the pit lane. I'll tell you what, that alone in itself, Del Fanta has a very good chance of actually jumping Florian Duakop, because he did go very cautiously into that one. So much so, Luke Whitehead had to back out a little bit, and now door potentially open. In comes, oh, that's a wide moment for Luke Whitehead under pressure from Nicholas Huben. He rejoins, but will go on board the Aston Martin driver, who now has a seriously good run in towards turn 2 and 3, and the undercuts from Del Fanta, the slow entry for Huben, and now the battling between Huben and Whitehead onto the back straight opens up a range of doors, and Whitehead will be kicking himself for that one, because Huben, after being patient in P4 for a while, nudging his way towards this group, now finds himself in the race leading position on track. But the question is, in terms of those that have pitted, Del Fanta making his way through turn 10. Wheels down for Duacop. Watch out for the Honda. There it is. Del Fanta through turn 11 they go. Florian Duacop. It'll feel like an age before he gets to that pit timing line. Del Fanta, where is he? It's going to be very close between them. I've clicked on the wrong car. I've got so excited. Through the first apex. Oh, turn 1 they go on the exit. Where is Duacop? He is behind. He is behind indeed. I thought he would be. Combining the undercuts with that slow pit entry from the German driver, that was costly. And the Italian storms his way up into the lead, and you'd have to think with the squabbling between Huben and Whitehead now, as they continue to be nose to tail, this very much does feel like it's game on for Eric Del Fanta. As now Luke Whitehead, the number 3 car, continuing to apply the pressure, seeing what he can do behind the number 10. Do they both come into the pits? It's just Whitehead. So, Nicholas Huben then feels like he's obviously benefited somewhat getting that track position over the British driver, and of course that little bit of squabbling that we saw with the Hondas. He can afford to go a bit longer into this race and try to come back through the pack on better tyres later on, because he did have about a 6-second gap to those cars behind, and that, by the looks of it, does seem to be what he's going for. But Luke Whitehead, how does he let this one to lose? You'd surely losing that position to the Aston Martin. You'd have to assume that Eric Del Fanta will be in the lead of this race. We've also got some other battling as well for those that have pitted. Zahedna versus Marco Schana, a little bit of a squeeze on the entry there, and number 28 car, and they will make his way through. And yes, absolutely something that Amadeo Castorino informed us about quite consistently over the course of last season, about the loss it suffers relative to other cars in the pit lane. And it just, doesn't hit the ground running very quickly, and it does lose a bit of time. So, maybe Huben's already said, I'm going to lose in terms of pit lane anyway. So, going for an overcut strategy, I might as well, because that's where I'm going to get my benefit. If I go for the undercuts, I'm probably going to lose out position, and then I won't have tyres to help me fight. So, maybe that's the strategy from him, as he right now leads Aston Martin 1-2 for those that haven't pitted. Castorino, the reigning champion, stays out in front. Luke Whitehead then emerges just behind Florian Duacop, so he is down to P3, and Eric Del Fanta, the biggest margin that we've seen over the course of the race so far, leads by 2 seconds as Marco Bischoff, side by side with Campanella in towards the chicane, manages to be kept behind by the Italian, as Carpenter, very brave around the outside. Oh, you have to be more alongside than that in order to make it stick. He just about holds on to the Bentley though, and he stays behind Jacob Osterman in the ITB racing car. Jardier having a look around the back of the McLaren of Lewis Rotors as well. Rotors has had some trouble today, and that's a dive. Oh my goodness, I really thought there was contact, or going to be contact there between those two, but thankfully they stay out of each other's doors. They live to fight another day. But Jardier looking right now like he has firmly set his eyes on making his way past the McLaren. The cameraman is having an absolute crisis whilst he tries to look at Nicholas Huben. So he has come into the pit lane now. So he's gone for a little bit of an overcut, but nothing too severe. As we look towards this pack of cars battling away. Oh, that's a little bit of a move, potentially for Marco Schana, trying to make it work. Got to be careful, though, with the likes of Walsingham and George Boothby behind. But now, as we see Nicholas Huben wheels down then, there's Del Fanta. He will, of course, take the race lead. And now, you see the likes of Whitehead goes on through as well. It's going to be pretty close, actually, between Luke Whitehead and Nicholas Huben. But Whitehead, more momentum out of the first turn as well. will hold on to P3. So Huber now has basically rejoined more or less about the same distance from Luke as he was before the pit stops, but he now has fresher tyres than the bunch. And Eric Del Fanta is all going to rely, I think, a little bit in terms of Florian Duacop. What can he do in terms of reeling in that Honda? He had good pace at the beginning of his first stint, but later on it was a bit more tricky. Meanwhile, Carpenter now, the Bentley straight line speed, working well. He goes on through, waltzing him around the outside of Marco Schada into the chicane, and he gets the move done. It's a favourite overtaking spot here for a reason, as only 2 cars have not come into the pits. The reigning champion, Amadeo Castorino, who is leaving it very late in the number 4 car, and then Jimmy Holm in the Porsche Spinala team Mustangs, number 35 car. So currently a running order in terms of those that have pitted: Del Fanta, Duacop, Whitehead, Huben, Burnt, Campanella, Bischoff, although possibly Lucas Roda very, very soon, who, of course, opportunistic stuff earlier on in this race, was able to make his way on through. 2 cars for the price of 1, but now having to fight tooth and nail with one of the most experienced drivers. Jimmy Holm comes into the pit, so it's only the reigning champion who is stayed out. He's made some strategic decisions that I've questioned, and so often I've been the one with egg on my face, so I'm not going to be judging that overcut strategy from Amadeo. Let's see what he can do in the second phase of the race. Carreras aggressive in the end of the final sector and gets the job done and the move done. Meanwhile, Luke Whitehead sets the fastest lap of the race, only about 1/10 of a second faster than those ahead. It's still a second up to the Honda in front of him, and then another 1.8 seconds to Del Fanta. So pretty similar gaps between these drivers. But there you go, Nicholas Huben again, closing in the slipstream. I think he'll bide his time for the moment, unless Luke Whitehead makes more mistakes like that. It was only a small one, but each margin will count, as there's a yellow flag, actually, as that is Dennis Wiedschorker that seems to have had a moment at the first turn. We've got a lot of busyness happening here. De Campo and Neuwer scrapping away. Oh, there's contact between Holm and Max Florence as well. There's a sign that's been carried with them into the next postcode, and De Campo trying to get the move done. Aston Martin, no straight line speed there, but my goodness, let's try to see if we can catch up with everything that took place there in towards turn 1. So there was the contact between Wiedschorker and one of the Genesis cars. I think that was Tommy Razia. And then, whereabouts? Jimmy Holm. Here we go, side by side with Max Florence through turn 2. Just the smallest nudges. Great reaction by Jimmy Holm to hold on to that one. We've seen some big saves and a half on this section. You saw Fabio Steyer was gaining a lot of time thereafter. Those two lost momentum. But Max Florence, little bit of misjudgment there on the climb up the hill. Thankfully, not too much harm done. And they all fight once again. Now, gap between your 2 effective leaders, Del Fanta and Florian Duacop. Florian Duacop sets the fastest lap of the race of 48.9. Another 0.2 of a second gained over the Italian up ahead. But, of course, he will have fresher tyres in the latter portion of this stint. His pace at the beginning of the last stint was very, very good. He was able to extend his lead quite comfortably initially, but then it was the second half of that phase where then the tyres seemed to start wearing out, maybe a little bit more twitchy, but more tricky to drive. Del Fanta, he seems to get stronger as the race goes on. Same goes for the likes of Whitehead and Nicholas Huben, all of which have a tyre advantage over that Honda. So those effects will be amplified from what we saw at the very start of the race. Meanwhile, Evan Manson, a man that was being cheered on at the very beginning of this evening of racing, trying to go to the outside, surely can't make it stick around there. Janus Rangers defends the inside line, nowhere for the Swede to go. Meanwhile, though, Vantin Barry, he fancies an opportunity himself. One of the biggest movers on the grid. Thanks, I think, the biggest mover on the grid this evening. 11 positions gained. Sasha Vass up ahead of him has been a hard charger for tonight as well. And for now, he will stay ahead. Meanwhile, Castorino finally comes into pit lane at the very end of the pit window. And that's, Vantin Barry right now with the Honzig trophy. Now, for those that don't know, Jardier, of course, absolute weapon behind the wheel every time we go racing. But I think even by his own admission, his qualifying pace has varied and somewhat been his weakness in terms of his Case King Pro Series evenings. But his race pace, his race management, so often exceptional and able to unlock opportunities for him and be a big mover up the field and have some fantastic races. Meanwhile, Marco Bischoff, very, very poor series of corners from him in the Mustang, much more composed from Lucas Roeder. And you can see, searching all around the gearbox of the #1 car ahead of him, Lucas Roeder, fantastic evening for him so far. Talking about Jardier, he actually fancies potentially a move up the inside. There's Castorino rejoining just behind as well. There's pit window closed. But everybody now having made their stop. Who's going to sense the opportunity? We've got a few that are emerging. I think George Boothby could be in with a shout here. Look at this. Zehenna, Osterman, and Walsingham and Boothby all very close together. They're almost 2 by 2 into the chicane, defended by Osterman, and that won't allow anybody to go on through. But what about Jardier trying to go around the outside of Schade? Schade gives him room. He still gives him room. Carrecaso joins the party. Might take one, might take two. Schade makes a mistake, goes wide, and then he's got 2 cars on the inside of him. I don't think he was expecting that. Jardier goes on through. Carrecas might try to take the pair, but he now needs to go the long way around as they head in towards turn 6, over and under for the 296. Can he get the power down? It's a planted car, but Jardier knows how to place that Aston to keep the prancing horse behind. And we'll try to see if we can get a replay of that contact in just a minute, because I don't think there's going to be an opportunity there for Carrecas to find that one. Unfortunately, it's not quite far enough available on the replay. That's a little bit disappointing, unfortunately, but you can see how the fight continued to play out over the other corners. But apparently, Jardier doing Schade a little bit of a favour there and pointing him in the right direction by the time they came out of that sequence. And apparently, I think with that, we've just hit 3,700 followers here on the English Twitch channel. Thank you, everybody, so much for the incredible support. What a journey it has been over the last few months, and how we close in day by day on that 4,000 follower milestone as well. Incredible stuff, and so grateful for all of your wonderful support. We continue on with 18 minutes of yes, I did notice actually someone did that earlier when I did ask, but yes, thankfully you guys have all stuck around. It is wonderful to have you all here. Meanwhile, the battles continue. Now Walsingham with a great opportunity, momentum in favour of that Mustang, but again Osterman will defend the inside line, and he holds on to that position, as also in the background Castorino unable to make his way past, and he's got Carrecas all around for company as well. Actually, excuse me, it was Castorino made his way past Grant Carrecas, I do believe. Oh my goodness, it's all kicking off over here. George Boothby trying to go the long way around Lucas Roeder, but he can't make that one stick. The Aston Martin driver manages to keep him behind, but maybe not for too long. Boothby looking racy, knows that potentially every point can count. You could never tell how your season is going to play out. 17 minutes on the clock. Florian Duacop, 1.5 seconds away from Del Fanta, has stopped reeling in the fellow Honda, as meanwhile Walsingham again looks towards the outside line, chopping and changing lines everywhere that he can. Great run though, out of the corner of the bottom of the hill, and there's contact. Osterman almost goes around, and it's Lucas Roeder again that goes on through. He says thank you very much, Lucas. 2 for 1 Roeder, and now it's George Boothby that says I don't mind if I do as well, sunshine. And the man that so often has contested for championships, the two that came to blows, a couple of corners to go, they'll do the same. Osterman, a squeeze to the wall. Jardier in the slipstream as well, and all of a sudden it's about a 7-car fight, 3 wide in towards turn 1. Amadeo Castorino with the freshest tyres of the bunch by a country mile. Castorino goes on past Aidan Walsingham. Osterman holds on, and for the meantime, as Jardier squeezed towards the outside line now, and it'll be a drag race between the pair of them, and Amadeo Castorino has got the best seat in the house as they climb up the hill, and you'd have to think there's a good chance that it's going to be fireworks by the time we get to the chicane. Castorino having to lift a little bit out of the throttle. Here comes a Mustang of Aidan Walsingham, but surely nowhere to go. Castorino up the inside, a little bit of a nudge on the braking zone. Osterman holds on. Walsingham has to slot in behind the Italian driver, and they continue on as they were but incredible stuff there as Lucas Roda, another fantastic bit of race management, up into P8. And now, as an over and under, fantastic line there from Jardier, trying to go all the way around the outside of Osterman, who's defending like his life depends on it. And it's a little bit of a shove, and Castorino goes through as well. These drivers, with this low amount of grip relative to the reigning champion, might be easy pickings for the Italian driver. He's so calm over the course of these races, even though we're not quite seeing him in the position we are used to seeing over the course of season 14. He is firmly in the fight to charge his way up through the field in these final 15 minutes, and with battles like this, you'd have to expect to see it. Castorino goes on through, side by side once again between Jardier and Osterman. Fantastic fight. These guys have been going side by side for nearly 2 laps, and there's still a little bit of squeeze. Jardier goes out onto the grass, and now is Walsingham again, trying to then go on past his teammate. He'll give him surely a little bit more room. Granted, Korekka's in this fight as well, and need to very quickly in a moment, I think, have a look towards Duacop and Luke Whitehead, because the people, the second and third place, are going side by side on the run up the hill as Delfanta extends his lead to 2.5 seconds. He'll be hoping that these two scrap for a while, but Luke Whitehead, he's got the inside line. How brave is he under brakes into the chicane? The answer's very, and Luke Whitehead gets himself up into P2, and now it's a case of 14 minutes on the clock and a 2.5 second gap to make up to Delfanta. Huben joins the party as well. Boothby trying to make his way on by Sebastian Zahentner. Lucas Roda unable to do anything on Marco Bischoff. The Mustang unable to do anything either. Walsingham, a third attempt in 3 laps to go past Osterman, but the McLarens will not budge for this one Mustang. And Jardier losing out a little bit in the chopping and changing off that scrap a moment ago. Will be trying to find opportunity as well. Korekka's very tight line through the right-hander of the outer loop there, searching for an opportunity in towards turn 6, but he will have to stay in position. And Florian Duacop dropping time very quickly to Luke Whitehead. He's got a lot of company in the hands of Nicholas Huben. Walsingham thinking about a dive towards the inside, but cannot make it stick. Oh, that's a little bit wide, though, from Osterman. Oh, there's contact as well. Oh, he almost went across the nose of Jardier there. Walsingham losing momentum. They're 3 wide on the run down the hill. Who's going to come out top of this one? Jardier will go between the two. He manages to keep up the momentum into P14. He goes Osterman again, squirrely on the exit. The McLaren not plugged through a corner, and it's almost mirror image contact of what we saw a lap ago. But Osterman holds on. Walsingham sent out wide by the Ferrari of Korekkas, and Marco Schada says, thank you, I'll have a bit of that if you don't mind. Into turn 10 they'll go side by side. Honda versus Mustang. Inside turns into outside, and then back to the inside again, and around the outside the Honda will look to go. Fantastic run of driving from Marco Schada there, as meanwhile further up the order Nicholas Huben, a huge speed advantage over Florian Duacop. He's now up into P3 with Luke Whitehead starting to chip away at that lead at Delfanta. He's taken 0.3 of a second out already, but he's only got a handful of laps left to reel in the Honda. And even though he's got slightly fresher tyres, does he have enough pace? I'm not so sure. George Boothby fancies another chance to break his way in towards the top 10 around the outside of Zahentner. Doesn't make it stick there. Tries to go for the switchback. Oh, and a little bit of a scare from Castorino behind. And Castorino, with those fresh tyres, is absolutely flying. A 49.3 on the last lap. He was 0.2 faster than your race leader, 0.7 of a second faster than anyone else up ahead of him. And now, as the Aston Martin bobbles its way along the exit, a little bit too much of that curve, the Italian driver will sneak his way on through up into P11. And now chases down the driver who he fought so hard with over the course of last season. As I need to check back in on this fight. Look at this. The shenanigans are absolutely unreal. Side by side between teammates. Side by side between Korekkas and Osterman. Korekkas and Walsingham on the inside. And I think they're both going to get their respective overtakes done and dusted. Marco Schada may respond like he did on the last lap. Jardier boxed in a little bit behind his teammate. The 23, the Honda tries to sneak his way on through, but he can't make it stick. Lewis Roters, the man that lost out earlier on in this race. trying to see if he can capitalize on all the carnage we've got kicking off. I told you that the Case King Pro Series delivers in bucket loads every single time that we go racing, and these guys are giving a beautiful example. Squirrely exit for so many on the exit of turn 11. The run in towards turn 1. Watkins trying to go around the outside, compromise the line of the McLaren driver once again, and that looks like it could be a very powerful exit as they run up the hill, and it might not be so easy this time around for the driver of Osterman. In fact, is already done and dusted through turn 2 and into 3 they go, and it is Walsingham who's got the move done. Manson fancies trying to hold on to that position from Marco Schada. The Honda quick in a straight line, but it's not quite Mustang levels of quick. And our wonderful resident statistician Kylo, only win for Del Fanta was in Pro Series 11 at Misano on his home circuit in a McLaren. He's in a very different type of track, very different conditions as well. And that lead is coming on down between himself and Luke Whitehead. It is not done and dusted. 10 minutes left to go. They'll have about 6 laps left. And I'll try to check in on the penalty situations, but it's a little bit tricky as Jardier and Osterman now, once again, they go side by side in towards turn 7. The Aston Martin sent towards the outside line. He keeps up good momentum though, looking to see if he can make his way on by. He's got a good run, but time to get to heel corner. A little bit of a squeeze in the braking zone from Jardier, and he does get the job done. Osterman may not like that little bit of a snap to the right-hand side all too much. Now, in fact, he can't think about it for too long because he's under pressure immediately from Albin Manson and Marco Schada. McLarens have struggled today for pace. And both of these ITB racing cars, often so much at the pointy end of the grid, they have struggled to hold position, have gone down the order. 9 positions lost for Jacob Osterman, 7 for Lewis Roters, and it may be 10 in just a moment because Albin Manson on the way in that Mustang has a very, very strong run towards the first turn around the outside. He looks to go over and under. He'll try to replicate what Aidan Walsingham did. And we'll watch from the front splitter of Marco Schada as he sees these two scrapping away. Oh, it's a big slide! Big slide for the Honda! Manages to just about keep it together. My goodness! He managed to keep it together, but he's going to be under pressure from the other ITB racing car, potentially. Manson trying to go around the outside into the chicane. He can't make it stick. Marco Schada goes from being the attacker to having to defend from that train of 4 cars behind that has Rotors, Reyners, Gaskell, Foch all together. And my goodness, these battles looking to go all the way to the very end. And that is very, very close between each of them, and just a little bit of loss of downforce on board that Honda, maybe a bit twitchy in these rainy conditions, and came unstuck. Meanwhile, Castorino moving very quickly, locks onto the gearbox of his championship rival from last season. Of course, Maciej Malinowski was firmly in that fight to the end as well. George Boothby fell away a little bit in the closing stages of the championship, but I wouldn't rule him out by any stretch of the imagination. T.W. Carpenter as well, running around in P9. Fantastic drive from him and closing the gap to Lucas Roder as that's Manson trying to go around the outside. And we'll see what he can do there. In towards turn 10 they go. Absolutely nose-to-tail stuff. Marco Bischoff and Lucas Roder very close on track. Luke Whitehead has stopped reeling in your race leader. In actual fact, it's Nicholas Huben that's starting to nip away at the gap behind the Porsche driver. So Luke Whitehead maybe has to turn his attention trying to hold on to P2. As meanwhile, down the inside then, as Manson on the charge. Valentin Barrier, I think, as well, trying to pull something off in the background. Can't make it stick there. Michael Frey calls Barrier our biggest charger of the race so far. 12 positions gained from him as he looks right now to take the Honzig trophy. As we look, Castorino cannot make his way past George Boothby. How do these guys fare? That's a big bit of momentum from Albin Manson trying to go around the outside. But also, he's been so consistent at defending this run into the chicane, and he makes it stick once more. He stays in P16. It's wide for Reinders and Lewis Rotors around the outside. That's very brave to try and take the position back, as Sam Gaskell will be rubbing his hands together, hoping for an opportunity opportunity side by side as well for a moment between Foch and Valentine Barra. Of course, good friends outside of the track, good friends on the track as well, as Gaskell manages to shoehorn his way in and the blocks by the McLaren. Oh my goodness, they're almost 4 wide into the next corner. Surely not. Lewis Rotor's got a little bit bogged down there and bogged Michael Frey down as well. And now that is Samir trying to go all the way around the outside through the right-hander. I'll keep an eye on every one of these fights as best as I can, but amazing, amazing battling everywhere you look in this field. And can we do Watkins Glen every single week? I'll tell you what, it'd be difficult for this sort of racing to ever get stale, wouldn't it? Alvin Manson towards the outside line. Oh, Jacob Osterman, he's actually managed to keep his foot in there a lot better than I thought he would. In towards turn 10 though, surely, door closed. And the Mustangs, they've tended to struggle in these final couple of corners. So I think Osterman will hold on to that one. Boothby versus Castorino. Looks for a little bit of a move up the inside. 5 minutes left on the clock. 3 laps remaining. Luke Whitehead gaining some time over Del Fanta. Maybe it's not done. He gained 0.3 of a second. He was the fastest in the top 3. Gap now between your P1 and P2 drivers. Just 1.5 seconds as he looks to try to hunt down for another race win. He has a very big tally of success in this series. Meanwhile, oh, Manson into a wall! And that may open the door now for Marco Schada, who's trying to pick a direction to go in. And he's chopping and changing, flashing at the lights there from the Mustang. Surely can't make the move stick here. They all just about somehow filter their way back into single file to live to fight another day there. Meanwhile, Michael Frey trying to defend away from Sasha Vasta, manages to keep that position. But that heavy contact into the wall there for a brief moment. Meanwhile, we've also got Florence Neuwirth, and that is Cody Sherritt, I believe, recovering his way up the order from the catastrophes earlier on in the race. They brought Fabio Steyer along as well, just to add another car into the mix. Fantastic racing wherever you look, up and down the order as it stands. But it's still Del Fanta that leads the way from Luke Whitehead, who is gaining. Nicholas Huben sticking with the pace of the Porsche. Florian Duacop dropping away as the next lap times come on in, and it's another 0.3 of a second gained by Luke Whitehead. It is not over and done with just yet, but it may just be a little bit too little too late as Bischoff, Roda and Karppinen charging along across the start-finish line. They go once more as the Mustang will be able to protect themselves and their position, of course, up the hill. So mighty and powerful in that section. Oh, poor lap, actually, from Luke Whitehead, as Nicholas Huben, I think, gaining in the opening sector, has just got that gap down to half a second. And he will, of course, have those better tyres. He looks very, very quick at the tail end of that opening stint. Z3. The gaps, once again, start to spread out. Team Karppinen has done a very solid job so far in this race in the Bentley to harness that car in these tricky wet weather conditions. It does tend to like it. Meanwhile, take number 453, Albin Madison, trying to go around the outside of Jacob Osterman. But again, the McLaren, he just does rinse and repeats the same defense, but he's done so often in this one. As that Sasha Vasta trying to be brave around the outside, doesn't make it stick. Valentine Barra says thank you very kindly, and he continues his charge up through the field and gets himself up into 24th place. May even fancy making it 23rd if he can get a move done on Michael Frey, who's very wide. He knows these compromises run there in towards turn 6. A McLaren driver trying to go towards the inside line, but it's shut immediately on the entry. Meanwhile, Florence, I think, having just had a bit of a scrap as well with Cody Sherritt. As, oh, was that a mistake? I think a mistake on the exit from Michael Frey. There you go, runs wide. Runs very wide, in fact, all caught up over the grass. And Valentine Barra makes his way on through and adds another one to his ever-growing tally. Nicholas Huben now in very close proximity. He was half a second quicker than both of the cars ahead of him, but there is only 2 more laps left to go, and it's game on because Nicholas Huben, he won't be wanting to wait around. And look at the run, the momentum that the Aston Martin has, and I'm not sure that there's anything that Luke Whitehead can do about this one. He would have to be immensely brave on the brakes, but he can't, and it's now Nicholas Huben charging towards the Honda of Eric Del Fanta, and Del Fanta Fanta, of course, he was the driver that went earliest in those stops of the lead bunch. And now Niklas Huben, the one that went for the overcut strategy. He's made his way past the cars that were running a little bit slower. He's got clean air ahead, but he's only got a couple of laps, and there's contact again. Castorino and George Boothby, the Veloce guys, having to have quick reactions on that part of the circuit today. Boothby manages to just about hang on, and Castorino, you can see, really fighting it out with the number 2 car in the server. Two drivers who have had a great deal of success in recent times on the Pro Series. Samir Foch manages to get the move done over Sam Gaskell, runs a little bit wide, but had enough of the move done in the early phase of the corners to make it stick as they come in towards the final sector. The 1.5 second gap is now 1.3, but he really needed that final opportunity, that run up the hill. It would have to be a mistake from Huben in these next series of corners in order for Huben, I think, to realistically have a chance of taking the lead. Eric Del Fanta is going to start the final lap of the race after undercutting his way towards the front. He's remained calm and collected so far. But of course, Watkins Glen, it's a formidable circuit. It is able to throw up danger at any given moment. Manson Osterman still scrapping away further down the order. Lewis Roters and Valentin Barrier also having a scrap as well. Barrier trying to be on the charge and make his way past the McLaren, make it 14 positions gained. But they will stay as they were for now as Timo Carpenter trying to make it in towards P8. He sent it down the inside of Lucas Roda, but it won't happen this time round. Niklas Huben has closed the gap down to a second. He is gaining at every single corner. The chance of a race win is within his grasp, but it's all pressure, all eyes on Eric Del Fanta to remain calm and collected. Manson tries to do it differently this time around the outside of turn 1. He's not given the great amount of room. Osterman will hold on through that run up in towards turn 2, and Marco Schada to join the party as well. Fantastic fights everywhere you look. Castorino unable to make his way past George Boothby on the final part of the lap and the race. The top 3, they fly on through the middle sector for one final time. Karpinen, no opportunities for him further down the order. Michael Frey trying to go for a move on the McLaren, but the straight line speed is just a little bit too strong, although an awkward line for Vantine may open the door. Michael Frey trying to go all the way around the outside. Vantine, though, after his charge, it's a big slide from the number 25 car. He won't hold on to that. He'll lose positions, but meanwhile, whilst others have lost control, have lost their heads of time in this race, with rain here at Watkins Glen, one man has remained calm at all times, and Eric Del Fanta, for the second time in the Case King Pro Series, is going to be a race winner in amazing fashion here at the opening round at Season 15. He takes P1 here at Watkins Glen. Niklas Huben at the end, the charge on the overcut strategy up to P2. Luke Whitehead rounds out the podium of Florian Duakop after being the pole man once again. He will finish P4. Leon Byrne and Campanella take P5, P6. Marco Bischoff wide out of the final corner. Lucas Roda might have an opportunity here, and I think he's going to get him towards the line. They go. Marco Bischoff, one of the most experienced drivers he has. He's lost it at the line, and Lucas Roda goes into P7. Carpenter was almost there for the taking as well. The Bentley finishes in P8. George Boothby does hold on to that final spot inside the top 10 ahead of Castorino. The other fight is going on through to the end. Osterman fought for all that he was worth to hold on to that. Manson was not able to make his way on by. How's it fair between Rotors, Barrier, Vassner? They stay as they were to the line. And we've also got some scraps still kicking off in the final parts of this race. As you see, Noah Reeder, all not happy there from Wieschocker. There's the flashing of the lights and the wiggle of frustration from the Aston Martin. Does he have any more remaining opportunities as they head towards the line? I'm not sure that he is going to be able to do anything about that car up ahead. But what a race that we have had here at Watkins Glen to kick things off the Season 15. If that's that for me is the Case King Pro Series summarized on a whole. The action is non-stop, the drama is incredible, the strategy, the level of racing, and the fact that at any given moment that even some of the very best can make mistakes and see it all go wrong. Just indicates how hard these guys are pushing. Philip Menard is going to be the last driver to cross the line. But that is round number 1 of Season 15 in the Case King Pro Series. Done and dusted. And it's Eric Del Fanta, that has taken glory here at Watkins Glen. A phenomenal drive from the Italian, and we will look to hopefully catch up with a few of our drivers in the interview room in just a moment. But what an amazing and exceptional race to kick this championship off. And Eric Del Fanta, I think for the first time in Pro Series history, he is a championship leader. As apparently possible penalty for Jacob Osterman. I didn't actually even get a chance to look through the penalties at the end of that race. We will do just a quick little survey to see what our wonderful hard-working stewards were doing throughout that one. So we had a couple of more warnings. We had a 5-second time penalty number 36 for causing a collision on lap 12. A 15-second time penalty number 33 causing collision on lap 20. And I've also realised that I don't recognise any of these numbers, so I have no idea who they're for. A 5-second time penalty for number 7 car, a 5-second time penalty for number 6, and a 5-second time penalty for number 32. A warning for the number 4, and a 5-second time penalty for the number 25, I think, has been served, although still being classed a little bit as being under investigation. But after a crazy evening of action, we will look to bring in our full podium who have all looked to join us in here. Wonderful to have each and every single one of them and get each of their perspectives on that immensely crazy race. First of all, we'll look to bring in the two-time Pro Series champion himself, but today only good enough for P3, but a crazy race from start to finish, Luke, in that one to kick off season 15. How are you feeling after that one of 60 minutes at Watkins Glen?
Good evening. Yeah, well, where do I start, really? Wasn't expecting anything from tonight, and then it rained, and then, well, literally the heavens opened in both senses. Got the miracle I was kind of hoping for, and we were actually competitive, which was, yeah, more than I expected. And then obviously had an insane fight with the top 4, and yeah, it was unfortunate not to come out, you know, in P2 or even P1, as I think both were definitely doable, but you know, the car has really bad tyre heating or overheating issues. We know this, it's a Porsche thing. And, you know, to even fight with the guys around me with dead tyres was, you know, something I'm very happy with. And as I say, Eric and Nicholas and also Florian as well drove amazingly. So GG's to those guys. They'd have all been worthy of P1 regardless of who won that race.
Yeah, a very, very tight fight between all 4 of you. And yeah, it'd be great to get a little bit of insight for you on that front, because we saw so many drivers, you know, pulling over to the right-hand side of the track, trying to get off the racing line, cool down their tyres a little bit. And obviously the Porsche looking like it was running into a bit of trouble on that front. How difficult is it to deal with that over the course of the race, especially such a fast and unforgiving track like Watkins Glen? Does it change the balance of the car, or is it just that overall loss in grip and trying to keep the thing on the black stuff?
I mean, it's really difficult. I think the Hondas obviously were struggling quite a lot, as it seemed, you know, they would drop off quite a lot towards the end of the stint. But honestly, the difficulty with the Porsches, it's just the rear tyres that overheat. The fronts have perfect temperatures, so they grip, so you get a load of front end bite, and then the rear just doesn't follow. Which, again, where you need the grip, and you need to be able to fully commit with confidence in these conditions at this track, it makes it less favourable. But I mean, you know, the car still felt really nice. I'm really happy with the balance and everything. And especially through Sector 3, I think we had probably the strongest car there. So, yeah, it was a really good race, all things considered. I mean, I was expecting to be outside the top 10 if it was dry. And yeah, obviously it rained. So that really helped and put the Mustangs a bit further down than they otherwise would be. So, yeah, I'm over the moon with the result, really.
Absolutely, and of course, as we well know in this championship, consistency is key, and shining high on some of your trickier days and then banking in those points when you're absolutely on your most competitive days are the ways to win these championships. So a fantastic way to kick off the season, Luke, and take what is your 19th podium in the Case King Pro Series as well, and an incredible statistic for your ever-growing tally. Next week, we'll be heading over to Suzuka. So any thoughts, feelings about how the Porsche may be shaping up there for that one?
Yikes is all I'll say. It looks hot. The weather looks hot, and I mean, today was meant to be warm, and obviously, as I said, the rain cooled the track down, but it's looking hot, and it's a high deg circuit, and the Porsche suffers with both, so I mean, this season I'm going on holiday mid-season, so I'm just here for the vibes. But you know, I'm very excited to just be competing. Such a strong grid this season, and yeah, you never know who's going to be on top. So I'm excited to see how the rest plays out.
Absolutely, as are we all. Luke, always a pleasure to talk to you. Congratulations on a fantastic scrap inside that top 3 stay and another podium to your tally. Look forward to seeing how you and the rest of the grid take on Suzuka next week, and perhaps even talk to you next time as well.
Fingers crossed, but yeah, good to speak to you again, mate. Have a good one.
Cheers, Luke. Take care. Great stuff to talk to a man that finished P3, but the driver that was on a charge in that closing stint of the race went longer into the race than anyone else inside the top 3, and that Aston Martin that was on a charge in those final moments with race-winning potential just a small distance up the road. Nicholas Huben, a fantastically crafted race from you. You were a little bit away from that top 3 at the beginning, but in the end you were in the thick of the action and the fastest car on track. Congratulations on the podium. How are you feeling after that one?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was an intense race. I'd say my strategy was to drive as long as I can to have the best tires in the end. Maybe I drove a lap too long. Yeah, I had the best tires in the end, but I was not able to get P1. So yeah, went everything as planned. Had a small tap on Luke in lap 1. That was absolutely on accident. Lucky that he saved it, otherwise the race would be done for both of us. And yeah, then in the end it was basically smooth sailing. I got the pace on the straight and just stay alive in the corners.
Yeah, absolutely. The that contact on lap 1 was a heart-in-mouth moment, I think, for us all, and yeah, yourselves included. But thankfully, all was able to continue on, and you know, thank goodness it did. The incredible race and battle that you had throughout the rest of the race. Now, talking to Luke just a moment ago, he was saying about how he was struggling with overheating on the tires with his Porsche and trying to keep them in a nice window over the rest of the race distance so that he could really push on. Aston Martin, typically a little bit more balanced, bit kinder to its tires. Was that something you felt you didn't have to contend with quite so much, or was it also an issue for your car as well?
That was actually a big issue. Yeah, I tried to manage as good as I can. It was sliding all the way, the tires were too hot, and I tried to manage it somehow. I think all 5 of us in the front did it very well. I think then it's a bigger gap. Yeah, I think we did the best job in terms of management, and yeah, that's why we are here. And it was not easy, to say at least.
Absolutely, yeah. It was an incredible fight between the 4 of you, and perhaps if the race had been that little bit longer, you might have been able to catch up to Eric and take a race victory. But opening the season with a P2 finish, a great way to kick things off. Next week, heading to Suzuka. Luke already a little bit concerned into that one because it is looking like temperature-wise it might be on the hotter side. He's concerned about his tyres may survive for that one. Any thoughts on how your Aston Martin yourself may get dialed into that track, and if you can compete for the race win once again?
I have no clue, but I will not drive since there's SRO on this weekend, and I have to focus on it.
Well, that's a pretty reasonable, understandable, swift answer to that question. But yeah, it'd be an interesting one. I mean, well, from your thoughts then, at least, if you're not going to be around for that one, what's your thoughts and predictions? Who do you think, if you were to put your money on into next week, any ideas who you'd be looking at, eyes on, for might be taking race win in round 2? Day.
I will bet on McLaren or Ferrari.
Okay, very interesting. So, in terms of that lineup, of course, we've got Grant Karekas returning to the championship as well. And he, of course, has been very mighty on his best day. So, perhaps maybe the Lithuanian driver will be looking to take a race win there. Very interesting to see how that one plays out. Nicholas, pleasure to talk to you. I believe that has been your 10th podium in the Case King Pro Series. So nice to get yourself into double digits for that statistics after an incredible drive for this evening. Kept us on our toes all the way to the very end. So thank you for hopping in for an interview, and look forward to hopefully seeing you in a couple of weeks or so time back in the championship once again.
Yep, see you. Bye-bye.
Take care, Nicholas. Great stuff to talk to the man that finished in P2, but the one that's going to be happiest of them all. It's only the second time that he's risen to the top step of the podium, but he's done it in fine style here tonight at Watkins Glen. Eric Del Fanta mastering those tricky rainy conditions and nailing the strategy with that undercut as well to cement it all in place. Congratulations on the race win tonight. You must be delighted with that one.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Yeah, I'm really happy of all the race. I think I did all the perfect call and everything pretty perfect.
Absolutely. I mean, it was, we were discussing it as we were seeing the race play out, as to who's going to be the first one to blink, who's going to try going for that undercuts and see if they can jump those cars in front. And it looked like as well, especially at the end of that first stint, Florian struggling for a little bit of pace, and your car, was still remaining in a good rhythm, a good groove. Do you think that was, that you managed to get your car on setups wise to maybe preserve the tyres a little bit better, or do you think that was something in the way that you were driving?
I think both. I saw him sliding a lot since 10 minutes of the stint, so I said, okay, I have to manage better than him the tires, and I have my chance. And with the undercut again a lot, and then it was all management in the second stint.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, of course, the Aston Martin of Nicholas Huben was he was approaching you relatively quickly at the end. Of course, he had the freshest tyres of the bunch, and that Aston Martin very, very quick in a straight line as well. How concerned were you in those final couple of laps, or was it a case of just keeping yourself calm, nailing your racer lines, and you knew you'd get the job done?
A bit, but I was also very focused, so I was sure I can win that, and yeah, I'm here, so it went all well.
Absolutely. Yeah, you nailed the race from start to finish. Incredible stuff from yourself. Now, heading over to Suzuka for next week, and could be a bit of an interesting one with the temperatures that we're seeing, and also how the Honda may end up getting on there. Any instinct as to how that one may play out for you, and whether you can look to make it 2 back-to-back victories?
I don't know about the fastest cars on Suzuka, but I think it's a bit similar to this track with hot temps, because in this race it was wet, but not that wet, so the rears were overheating a lot, so I think it's a bit the same, Suzuka.
So we could potentially be looking forward to making it 2 wins on the bounce. I like the style and confidence, Eric. An incredible drive from you this evening, and a great bit of momentum to carry through into the second round of the season. Congratulations on taking your second victory in the Pro Series. A pleasure to talk to you, and look forward to seeing how you get on next week.
Thank you so much.
Cheers, Eric. Take care. Great stuff to talk to our race winner from this evening, who got all of the decisions right. He didn't make a single mistake over the course of that race, and that rewarded him with his second race win in this championship. Whether he can look to make it 2 on the bounce heading to Suzuka in potentially similar-ish kinds of conditions, who knows? The hot temperatures, may play potentially in favour of that car, but if it is looking to be a dry race for that one, would start to maybe see the likes of those, the Ferraris, the McLarens, those mid-engined, high downforce cars that so often are able to remain agile and control their temperatures over the course of a race like that. That may be where the pace lies. I think Nicholas was spot on the money with that one, but who knows? It is always so unpredictable here in the Case King Pro Series, as tonight, I think, has definitively gone on to show. So we will look to hopefully take a bit of a glimpse through the race results for this evening, with Eric Del Fanta topping the standings after this one ahead of Huben and Whitehead. Duacop dropping to P4 after that back-to-back pole, with Burns, Campanella, great drives from both them. Lucas Roder, another standout at the line as well. Bischoff, Carpenter, Boothby, Castorino, Zahenna, Karekas, Jardier, Walsingham to the end of the top 15. And then we have Manson, Schade, Reinders, Foch, Gaskell, Osterman dropping 14 positions in that race. Unusual for him. As then we have Roters, Barrier, Vassar, De Campo, Holm, fray Flores, Sherritt, and Steyer to the end of the top 30. And then rounding out our grid, Kolosov, Neuwirth, Razier, Rodriguez, Ida, Vichorka, and Manar. Your final finishers with DNS. I think actually Lukasen may have continued to the end, but of course had that heavy damage earlier on. But then DNS from Van Thielen and Kargulu at the end of that one. So an immensely busy race for that. Also, Carlo, you may have to remind me then, who did get pole? I could have sworn Florian Duacop got pole, unless he may have jumped into the lead at the start of the race. I could have sworn that Florian Duacop got pole at the Nordschleife. Jardier? No, I'm gonna... Okay, I know I really should not be doubting Kylo. He is our resident statistician for a reason, but for my own peace of mind, I am going to have to go back and check because... oh, it's on the archive thing, so I can't see it in the way that I would have wanted. Okay, I'm just going to have to... does anyone else have a fact check on that? Because I could have sworn that the Honda took pole position out Nordschleife. I'm going to have to go back and try to check something in some form or another. But anyway, Florian Duacop has been at the pointy end of the grid lineups over the course of the last two races between these seasons, but unfortunately on neither occasion able to convert it into what would be a second race win. Instead, those honours went to Eric Del Fanta for this evening after that masterful drive from start to finish. An incredible evening of action from him and the rest of the field. And haha, I knew I was right. That's 1 point for Mr. Commentator. It doesn't happen very often. In fact, it's incredibly rare, but I'm going to be enjoying that small victory for a while because it may be one of few that I get. But, an incredible evening of action here at Watkins Glen. Always so much incredible racing that this circuit puts on, and it has delivered as we have always expected it to, as does the Case King Pro Series every single week, and Eric Del Fanta managing to be the king around this circuit this evening. What an evening of action, but that is going to be it for the season opener of Season 15 in the Case King Pro Series. If you have enjoyed the evening of action that you have seen and fancy staying tuned for the racing that is on offer in the coming weeks, then do look to give the channel a follow. Big thank you to all of those that followed and subscribed this evening as we clipped over that milestone of 3,700 followers and set our targets off to the 3,800 milestone. A pleasure to have you all here. And if you also fancy getting stuck into the action yourself, have a bit of a gander what it's like behind the wheel of these incredible GT3 cars, then never fear, you can. If you head over to lowfieldmotorsport.com website, you can get yourself lined up, get yourself a license, you work your way up through the ranks, and you can compete in series like the Case King Pro Series and so much of our other incredible action, the daily racing, the endurances, all sorts of goodness to get stuck into. And if perhaps the world of ACC and GT3 isn't quite your cup of tea, then you can also hop onto Assetto Corsa as well. The original sim still going strong as ever, and some wonderful crazy racing that you can get involved in on that front. And if voluntary off-roading is your thing as opposed to wherever I end up when I try to hit an apex, then you can also join the WRC club as well and do some rallying fun as well in this wonderful community. And if you fancy just being a part of all the latest news, making some new friends, and joining this wonderful group of people that will welcome you in with open arms, you can also join our Discord server as well. So much to be a part of, and we would love to have you all here. How, as we enter Season 15, how many of you do we have in the world of LFM? We have over 183,000 of you. We're closing in amazingly quick to the potential of having 200,000 people on the platform. That is just absolutely bonkers numbers, and it's a pleasure to have each and every one of you here. But for tonight then, from Watkins Glen, glory to Eric Del Fanta in that one, and we'll have to see when they go toe-to-toe once more at Suzuka. Will it be back-to-back victories for the Honda, or will it go to someone else? We'll have to wait and see, but one thing is for certain, that is it's going to be a crazy evening of action, so I cannot wait to see it. I cannot wait to have all of you joining once again at the next round. But then, everybody, for tonight then, it's goodbye.